Hello. Welcome back to the Friends of Zeus podcast. First time I've actually said it without mixing it up with one of my old podcasts. Please, we got a suggestion I think is very astute to introduce ourselves. So let's do that first. The guy with the big plane in front of him, or behind him rather, that would be stupid if it was in front of him, is Michael Brandon Wilkes. Whatever. The guy with the I had to throw in the last name with Brandon.
Don't out us.
The guy with the flag is Tom. We got Jack with his X-Files chic look. I'm the guy with what the fuck behind me. My name's Zeus. And we got a guest tonight, Toar. Let's get the business out of the way.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Toar.
Hey,
Toar.
We're not actually in the same room.
He's got the mask on.
Jack told me that you guys were mask mandate guys. I'm very misinformed here. Then
I appreciate the consideration.
Well, wait, no, you can take it off only if you've been tested.
Sorry. Yeah, no,
awesome.
I'm trying to, this is me in the lion's den, so I wanted to kind of start with a little bit of levity. So, you guys don't just jump down my throat to start with.
We definitely like levity. So the business is, you can find us on Facebook at the Friends of Zeus podcast, on YouTube now under the Friends of Zeus podcast as well as the channel. You can find us on Spotify and Anchor. There's some rumblings on Rumble, and we're going to be adding on to them as we go. Of course, you can. Again, if I didn't say, you can find us on Spotify. We don't have everything there, but we do have video there, and I know it's a pretty popular one to use, so definitely go there. But more importantly than all that, we're feeling some love lately, but we'd really like to see it in likes and shares and views, comments. Yeah, comments.
Put some comments on there.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. All that. Just show us the love. It helps us. I mean, obviously we've got people listening now. It's getting better. It's ramping up a little bit. But in order for it to help us to make a better product, and we need a lot of help, we need to get it monetized. I don't want to do subscriptions. I think that's just, not at least at this point. But anything you guys can do to help, and really all that is just the likes and the subscribes, please do. And that being said, there's been a little news lately about something going on in Eastern Europe and Russia. And we thought we would kind of touch on that. We might even touch on it later if we can get a guest from that region. I'd like to, but this is Mike's car. I'm going to let him drive. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm not a subject matter expert on this, but I did put together a little slideshow just as a primer, just kind of give some background information. This has been going on a long time, but when it started to get hot and actual, guns shooting and all that stuff last week, we decided to do an episode on modern aliens. So we're about 7 days behind. So we're going to catch up on this one, which also was a great episode, number 50.
And the numbers were great.
Numbers, yeah, getting a lot of good feedback.
Okay.
On that
we just wanted to let things unfold a little bit,
yeah,
so we could analyze it.
Yeah, we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we did a little slideshow on this one. Let me bring it up here. Hopefully it won't crash.
Just in case.
Everybody see everything okay?
No, not yet.
I see nothing.
Oh my goodness.
No, I don't see a slide yet. It says you started sharing. That's all.
It should be on the way. You're fired, Mike. You're fired.
First cut.
Unbelievable.
No, Mike, you can edit this like Scorsese.
Yeah.
That's actually what I do for a living. So
Is
my
that
name,
it?
yeah.
All right, we got Toar.
Okay, are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Well, that was easy. All right, so here we are. This is a map showing Ukraine. One question I have, and I didn't know when Jack said you were coming on tour, I didn't know if you were like from Ukraine or what. So
I am not from Ukraine. I am not a foreign affairs expert by any means. I'm just an opinionated individual. So
yeah,
anything I say is probably factual.
You'll fit right in.
I'll do the best that I can. But yeah, no. So I mean, this could be. I'm actually kind of surprised we're not live streaming the State of the Union. I thought that's what you guys would be up to tonight.
Yeah.
Like the Mystery Science Theater, sitting in the corner heckling as we go.
Yeah.
That would have been a good idea. That's a good idea. So I'm surprised you're not doing that tonight.
And at the end, I could have like ripped up the
Union.
ripped paper in half or something, maybe at the end of it. So
We'll do it live.
we'll do it live. So my first question is it Ukraine or the Ukraine? And I think it was the Ukraine back when it was, part of the Soviet Union, because it was the Ukraine region. But I don't know. I was going to ask you, Toar, if you were from there.
I'm pretty sure
nomenclature
it's the Batman now. That's all I can tell you about that. Yeah.
It's the.
I heard that.
So this is a cool Putin graphic, and this is Ukraine. Now Ukraine is, again, it's a fairly large country. It's actually, I don't know if it's the second largest. Yeah, I'll get to that. That's one of the slides. You beat me to it. No, it's cool. It's fine. So down here on the map, I mean, this is showing Crimea is still part of Ukraine, but as you all know, back in 2014, Putin went into there and kind of took that over without meeting much resistance from the world. And we'll get into that in a minute. But we switch to the next one here. Present day Ukraine, as far as like the government that's there and kind of the laws that they follow in their government structure, was formed in 1996 when they passed their current constitution. Obviously, there's been other forms of government and things, that predate this. But as far as the, President Zelensky and the parliament, they basically have a similar structure to us, where they have a parliament instead of a representative body. I mean, it's a parliament instead of a republic. They do have an executive branch as the president. They also have a court. But the government that's there right now was basically formed in 1996. As far as like just showing people where it is, again, I'm using my cursor. Here's Ukraine. Obviously, here is present day Russia. England's over here, just to kind of give you an idea of the size of it and where it is. Belarus, again, everyone's learning more about Belarus, is definitely under the control, in the pocket of, under the sphere of influence of Moscow. A lot of the troops coming into Kiev or Kyiv, whichever way you want to pronounce it, were actually came in through Belarus. So they're actively involved in this. It's not just Russia and Ukraine. As far as the size of population, it's close to California. California is a little bit smaller as far as population, just to give you an idea. And as far as land mass, it's a little bit smaller. Actually, it's a little bit bigger than California. It's a little bit smaller in land mass than Texas, just to give you some perspective. Again, I just put these up there because I was curious as far as, because you hear, there's a lot of Russians that live in Ukraine. Is Ukraine really part of Russia? Putin's point is basically that Ukraine was created by Russia, I guess is the way he put it in his speech last week. It is a distinct, separate culture. There is, the largest minority is Russians. A lot of them live in the eastern portion of Ukraine. And in 2014, when Russia took over Crimea, there were also two districts that, I guess called themselves like a breakaway district, that were mainly ethnic Russians that wanted to be under the control of Russia. There's a lot of debate about whether they really wanted that or whether Putin was just sending Russians into that area claiming to be Ukrainian and then claiming to want to be part of Russia. So who knows? Religious affiliation, again, most are Ukrainian Orthodox. There's a lot of non-religious atheists as well. And as far as the population, 2/3 live in urban areas, versus rural.
But what is Ukrainian Orthodox? What does that mean?
Yeah, that was another thing. I just didn't have time to really get. I'd love to know. Like, what do you guys have the 411 on that versus Russian Orthodox?
No,
I don't know.
Is it Catholic or?
I don't believe it's Catholic. No, it's not under the Roman Catholic Church. It's a separate church. I know it's based. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's Christian, Zeus. I think
it is
Christian. And
Yeah,
I know
it's Christian. It's similar to Catholic.
And I know it's based in Kiev. I mean, that's like their Rome, basically. But yeah, it's not under the auspices of the Vatican. I'm assuming the Ukrainian Catholic is. Of course, we have Pac-Man. I had to put that in there. It's my all-time favorite pie chart. This area in maroon is the area that does not resemble Pac-Man. So.
That's very clear. Thank you.
You're welcome. This one
already.
This is kind of like the main thing, and I started putting this together mainly for myself, and I was like, I'll make this a slide just to get down on paper, so I could kind of like remember kind of the order that things happened. So Gorbachev, became General Secretary of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union in 1985. We all remember, I believe. I'm not sure how old you are, Toar, but we're all like around 50.
Plenty old enough. Yep.
Yeah. So, everyone remembers the whole Chernobyl thing. That was 1986. Reagan's speech at the Berlin Wall was 87. This one I found interesting. One of the things Gorbachev did is he ceased jamming. Up until this point, the Soviet Union had jammed all foreign broadcasts, radio, television, ham radio, everything they could. And he stopped doing that in 1988. And again, being like a media person, I gotta believe that it helped all of these other things happen after that. Again, this is the first time that people in the Soviet Union could hear all the news and all the stuff going on in the rest of the world, not through the filter of the party. So I think that was probably pretty significant for the people living there.
Wasn't that sorry, Mike?
Yeah.
Wasn't that Glasnost? I think
I don't know if it coincided with that. It may have.
That in Russian that means openness, and that was something Gorbachev started.
It was definitely during that time, if not the same day. Then I would. Yeah, you're probably right, Tom. Fall of the Berlin Wall. Of course, we all remember that. Like, a lot of cool music was made. Scorpions and Van Halen.
Roger Waters.
Yeah. That
was 20 years before that, or 10 years before that.
What was that Van Halen song? Right Now, wasn't that? And they had Sammy Hagar. That was after David Lee, Diamond Dave was gone. Anyway, you can see parts of the Berlin Wall at various museums all over the world. If you've ever seen it, it's kind of sobering. But I put Lithuania in here. They're actually, and I didn't realize it, and I'm part Lithuanian, so I had a little bit of pride here, but they're the first republic out of the 15 to declare independence when things started unraveling. Ukraine followed about 18 months later, 15 months later, declaring their independence. Gorbachev resigns. All this happened on the 25th and 26th of December in 91. Basically, Gorbachev resigned, the USSR dissolved, and Yeltsin became the first president of Russia. And this was the date where they took down the hammer and sickle and put up the Russian tricolors over the Kremlin. Ukraine parliament ratifies and adopts their constitution, like on that previous slide, which is the same form of government that they're still operating under today. Yeltsin resigns as president. This is a whole, you could research this. It's pretty amazing the way Putin pretty much, coerced him to leave, made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Yeltsin had his hand in the cookie jar with a lot of corruption. Putin had all the goods on him, basically told him that he could not go to jail, and live the rest of his life out, which didn't last that much longer, I believe. He died not too long after this.
Basically, Putin knew where all the bodies were buried.
Yeah, so Yeltsin stepped down and Putin became president of Russia, which, again, I kind of knew this but didn't know this. So, we're in 2022 right now. So, there's a direct line. I mean, the Soviet Union collapses, Yeltsin takes over, and then Putin, and we still got Putin. I mean, there really hasn't been a robust conversation over there as far as like how the people want to be ruled and what form of government they want. I mean, there's still kind of big hangover there. The Maidan Revolution in Ukraine, again, that's like a whole other story if you want to get into that, but that's basically the president of Ukraine from 96, I believe, up until this time, basically got tossed out, and I think it was it Poroshenko that came in, who Zelensky eventually replaced. This was big in the news right when this happened, and I didn't connect these two events until I was just researching this. I just totally forgot about it. But it was that event that sparked the whole invasion of Crimea, because basically what happened was Ukraine, although a separate government, was really under a lot of control from the Kremlin, still from Putin. I mean, he caught a lot of shots there. And when this Maidan Revolution happened and the people basically picked a new president that was outside of the sphere of influence of Putin, he took that as a threat, because now the Ukraine was not under his control as much. And that's when he went in and he created this thing of like, there is a nation of Russians that are living within Ukraine that we need to save. So that's when he went into Crimea, and that's when these two separate regions in East Ukraine kind of broke off and said that they wanted to be part of Russia. Which
Is that what that means in English? Because I always heard it referred to as the Maidan Revolution, Maydan.
I may have spelled it wrong, but I think that's right. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's Maidan.
Try and be a little more
Maidan.
professional next time, Michael.
Unless that translates to maiden, I don't know.
That would be pretty cool, actually. I wonder if that's also right around when Ukraine started asking NATO to become a member, because that would also kind of make sense with the timing of how when Crimea happened. Yeah,
I believe so. I believe it was. Yeah, I believe it was.
They really, that new president, they all started to look, instead of looking east, they started looking west.
Yes.
To be more part of the European Union and looking for help from NATO against. Are we comfortable with calling him a dictator? Is this podcast comfortable with calling him a dictator? Yeah.
Yeah, you can call him whatever you want.
I would have been.
Said
megalomaniac.
I mean, he's an authoritarian, so he controls. I mean, the people of Russia are not a free people. I mean, they are not. They don't have self-determination. So yeah, he's a dictator. He's an authoritarian. He's a tyrant. Absolutely.
All of the above. Agree.
Yeah, he would fit
it's amazing. We agree on a lot of things. This is great.
Yeah. No, he definitely, easy. He definitely fits that definition.
He is the epitome of a James Bond. Yeah. James Bond villain. He is Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have some other point. I'm gonna get through the slideshow because
please. Sorry.
Go ahead. I can. No, that's cool. And I can bring this back up if you want the timeline. This is again bringing it to present day. This was taken, I believe this was yesterday. This is that, they're talking about that 40-mile column of tanks and troop transports and all these other things that are heading to Kiev, and seemingly slowed down a little bit. But, this is basically the fuse on things. I mean, when these guys get to town, it's probably not going to end well. you know, as much as bloody as everything has been, and as many reports that there have been of atrocities, which I no reason to doubt, it can definitely get much worse. You know, the type of weaponry that Russia has and that most modern powers have right now are fairly devastating. So, you know, there's debate. Does Putin, you know, he doesn't want to destroy this town because he wants to basically decapitate the government and install another government that would take him back to pre-2014, that would be under Russia's sphere of influence. But, you know, if he can't take it peacefully, I mean, my personal opinion is he's going to take it extremely violently, because I think he's kind of run himself out of runway here at this point. This was a photo from last week, which was pretty heartening, of this gentleman who's like volunteering for the defense forces, showed up with his little suitcase with clothes and some sandwiches. This lady, are you guys familiar with this story of this lady?
Yeah, it's great.
It's fantastic. She just like goes up to this Russian soldier and just starts cursing at him, and then like tries to give him sunflower seeds. Tells him to put them in his pocket, so when he dies, at least sunflowers will grow. Which I believe sunflowers are like Ukraine's national flower, right?
That's kind of badass.
It's super badass, man. I saw that and I was like, geez, man.
It's super badass if it's true.
If it's true, right? And that was we'll still talk about that. There's definitely been, that's a whole other thing. This is true because he actually said this, which I thought was awesome. I mean, when he was offered by the United States safe passage out of Kiev, you know, I need ammunition, not a ride. I mean, that's, again, it's a cultural thing, I'm sure, but you know, I think when there's people who have lived under harsh conditions, and their parents and grandparents and great grandparents have stories of how it's been harsh, and now they're been living for 8 years in a situation where they have self-determination and, you know, can vote, and then they see that being threatened and being taken away. I get it. Like, I get it. It's there's a fire. I mean, people want to be free, you know, and there's almost no greater power than righteous indignation, right? It can, I mean, if you feel that you're being put out, I mean, you can. Someone described it as I heard someone talking where they described this situation as, you know, Putin is the snake trying to swallow a porcupine, you know, taking over Ukraine. I mean, they're not just falling down. And then this was just some artwork that I found today. This was inspired by what that lady said. I thought it was pretty awesome. So anyway, so that's the slideshow. Let me jump out of here. We're back. So yeah, I mean, I don't know where you guys want to get started.
So I got a couple observations, if I may. So I started watching that Oliver Stone movie that Tom sent out, and it did change how I'm looking at this. I'm still Team Ukraine, but they clearly, based on the movie, and Oliver Stone has a way with words, so it's not, I don't want to mince it too much, but they clearly do have a kind of a sketchy history. They have a history of switching sides quickly on a dime.
Done that a lot, yeah.
One of those sides happened to be the Nazis.
You're talking about the Ukrainian people?
What's that?
Are you talking about the Ukrainian people?
Well, I mean, not the people, the government, but well, you know what?
The people.
As much as I hate to say it, yeah, the people, the partisan groups and all that, they went out and killed, I think they said like 37,000 Jews in like a period of 2 weeks with the Nazis. So
and
now
Polish.
that is history. So that being in mind, and I like this guy that's in charge. He seems pretty legit. But I just, you know, I like that to be out there is that not that I like Putin, but another thing we do have to consider is if say Alaska was full of a bunch of people that wanted to ruin our government, we might be a little, or Canada would probably be a better comparison. You know, something to that degree, that close to our size. There are things to consider. I mean, not to, obviously Putin's a bag of dicks, but he does have a country that's about half, I would say, about half the size of Russia.
Well smaller than that, but yeah, it's big, though, yeah.
Not friendly. And I'm not, from a strategic standpoint, I understand the wariness of that other country. Now, that being said, the military strength of Russia is way more. But it's just some observations to throw out there, that this is all kind of new to us. It kind of disappeared, and we didn't like bury ourselves under Ukraine news over the last 4 years.
No.
Or 6 years. So there's a lot that we need to learn about this, and we're only like 5-6 days in. Or is Russia a bunch of bullies? Absolutely. Do I think that they're Nazis like Putin's saying? Absolutely not. Do I like the guy that's in charge in the Ukraine? Fuck yeah, man. He's like if Robin Williams ran for president. He's a very interesting guy.
What happened.
Huh?
Yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough. And we're basing, like, even the Oliver Stone thing is basing it like 5 years back. We don't know what's happened since then. I do know I don't like this. I'm always for the under guy. I do not think Putin is the under guy on any level. I picture Putin when he's sitting at home and just chilling at the TV,
shirtless,
stroking a cat. No, petting a cat. Just, yes, princess, you will take over the world tomorrow. But I get the strategic portion of it. I live next to people that are bigger than me that can beat me up. I don't go attacking them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. Bezmenov comes to mind a lot with all this too. Like, I feel like everybody's just, it's all disarray, and this is just another part of it. That's what I got.
Gotcha.
I am definitely, again, not a foreign policy expert, foreign affairs expert, but if I remember my Seinfeld, Ukraine is the key in risk, right? You take the Ukraine, and that's how you get to Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought it was Irkutsk.
Ukraine weak.
Yeah, I thought that was the whole point. The other funny pop culture reference, I don't know, Princess Bride, right? You know, the 3 things you don't do. You don't get involved in a land war in Europe or a land war in Asia.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's what's going on right now, you know? So I can somewhat understand the Ukrainian people needing to flip-flop, because they're going to get invaded by either side if there's world war going on, you know, and they're not as equipped as the higher world powers. So, you know, it's, you fight back until they bomb the crap out of you or kill your population or kill all your men. And then all of a sudden, well, what do? You kind of have to you resist as much as you can, but at the same time, you don't want your kids to die too, you know? So, right. Not to justify it, but I understand where, if it's such a key piece of land, tactically, it kind of makes sense that they're going to always be put in the crossfire, right? And right now, from everything, and again, don't know much, from what I've seen, I mean, obviously Russia is not deep in natural resources. Ukraine is deep in a lot of those natural resources, right? Agrarian, I want to say precious metals, things like that that's something that Putin needs access to, and that the USSR had access to. You throw in that they're now, instead of looking east, looking west, and you see influences from Europe and from the United States culturally. Their kids are listening to different music. They're wearing t-shirts and blue jeans, and all of a sudden that the sphere of influence of Putin has reduced, and not just reduced, but gone to his sworn enemies. So I can kind of see where they're stuck, but they're also now they're defending their homes, and they're not powerless. They certainly have not a robust military necessarily, but there is a military presence. They are getting support from us in the West. The whole first impeachment trial was about with Zelensky about the javelins, right? That they're using now to blow up these tanks, you know? So, I mean, it's, you see the line of, all right, well, how much can we help? How much more can we do without provoking the guy that said he's, took his nuclear arsenal to DEFCON 4?
Well, and there's a couple of observations that need to be made. First of all, I'm not going to name the episode because I want people to go back and look at our old episodes. But recently, we talked about something that I think not a lot of people are talking about right now. I think this group will get what I'm saying, but I think it's foolish for us to think that Ukraine is the end game. I think Ukraine, to quote the other episode, is kind of like from Hitchhiker's Guide, where they're not going for Earth, the aliens. They're just going through Earth. They're going to pave it. It's a pothole. Ukraine is, again, it's like Afghanistan. It's like Poland. I mean, kind of the same thing. I mean, I think actually Poland, half of Poland was taken. It was called Western Ukraine at one point. So they're very. If you look at the map, Ukraine is right there in the middle. It's a huge piece of land that shares a lot of borders and you're like miles and miles of borders. Again, they are not the end game. We have just passed go. Let's collect $200. It would be foolish for us to think that this is where it stops. So I think that's why the world is kind of concerned. Is if they get there, then, pick who you want them to attack first. Belarus, probably not. Poland, almost definitely.
Yep.
I'm sure there's good blood and bad blood there. But and then I'll go with Slovakia. And I've been to Slovakia. Slovakia it's not like third world, but when you're on the borders and you're driving through little towns that don't have gas stations and everybody's wearing not burqas, but like, the old what babushkas. You see all these babushkas walking around with their handkerchiefs over their hair, and they're carrying wicker baskets with seeds in them. It's not a military force. So there's a lot that they can access just by owning that little piece of land. And they got 750,000, I think, passports that they handed out that say you're Russian to a bunch of people there. So they got this like force that should they take over, they got the administrative people that'll be ready to jump right in. So it's a little alarming.
I don't know if I agree with that, and I'll be the odd man out here. That's okay. But I don't know that, because Putin's got to know what he's up against here, and I think he's going to form more of an alliance, with the parties that are against the West already anyway. Russia depends on the Ukraine agriculturally, but they really depend on it to run that pipeline through it, don't they, Mike?
Well, it's going under the Black Sea, which is right off the coast.
But here's the other thing about getting to Ukraine. Then you've got the Baltic, which is bordering it.
Well, that's what I mean. I think he just liked having that front acreage on the front lawn, and the fact that the country is getting more westernized, especially the western half of Ukraine. I watched one professor who broke it down by region, and there's a lot more Russian influence on the eastern part of Ukraine that hasn't gone. I think he called it, what is it, the Orange Revolution? Does that ring a bell, Mike? Where they talked about the Westernization of Ukraine. It's almost like a line of demarcation that goes right through the middle of the country. And I'm wondering if we're going to have another Berlin Wall situation, if that's what Europe has to do to appease him, because I think Toar touched on it. There has been more of, I guess, a quest to become part of the EU and NATO, and Putin doesn't want that on his front lawn. And I think that this has been going on since the 90s. Sort of like NATO has expanded a lot since the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, the
And
Baltic state. I mean, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, you know, are all in. But the thing is, if Putin is so concerned about having a NATO-aligned country on his border, he's already had that for 15 plus years with the Baltics. So I think it's more than that. I think the fact that Ukraine and Russia, I mean, I've heard it described that the two cultures, I mean, really up until just 2014, have viewed each other as brothers, you know, like big brother, little brother. I mean, there's a lot of warmth. There's a lot of families that have relatives on both sides of the borders. I mean, this wasn't like, you know, two alien cultures. I mean, they had a lot in common. I think Putin was okay kind of having Ukraine as a DMZ, like a borderlands between himself and the larger NATO countries like Germany and everything else. But as soon as the people, I think what happened is the people who wanted self-determination and kind of throwing the yoke of Moscow off and kind of wanting their own government. I think Putin saw the handwriting on the wall there that he's going to end up with this country on his border that is culturally similar, that is more aligned with the West, and that is going to bleed over into Russia eventually, because
that's a great point.
And he has to squash that. I mean, for us in the United States, this seems like it just started last week, but this has been going on for a long time, and in its current form, really for 8 years, but long before that. But but going back to 2014, I mean, Putin has been putting economic pressure on Ukraine. I mean, he has been trying to get them to submit for years, and I think with their push to become part of the EU, which the EU has approved as of a couple of days ago, wanting to get into NATO, and I think NATO, and again, I don't know this. I'm just trying, like, from what I'm reading, I think NATO is hesitant to accept, or was hesitant to accept, Ukraine, because Article 5 of NATO, of the NATO agreement, says if one state is attacked, all states have to respond. So for NATO to be like, hey, Ukraine's coming up like, hey man, can I join your club? Can I come in your clubhouse? And NATO's like, we'd like to have you, but you got this
Putin's standing behind him like this.
Yeah, and if he attacks you, then we got to go and get Putin. And it's like, I don't know if we want to do that. I think that's kind of, so it's out of balance, and things are kind of seeking a new balance, and Putin just basically just went in there and like a bull in a china shop. And so it is going to rebalance somehow. How, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be over soon. I think if Putin gets his ass handed to him and Ukraine is somehow, this government is somehow able to survive, which I don't think is likely, but if it does, he's going to have, if it survives, he's going to have a problem. Even if he defeats it, taking over a city in a country or part of a country is one thing. Holding it is a whole other thing, because he has stirred up the hornet's nest. And Zelensky put out a thing saying, like, anyone in the world who wants to volunteer can come here. We'll give you a gun and fight. I mean, and I'm sure people are doing it. I mean, the whole romanticism of like the French Foreign Legion and all that stuff. I'm sure there's people all over the world that are like, screw you guys, I'm going to fight for Zelensky or whatever. He's going to have, there are going to be people, even if Putin takes over, that are, it's going to be like Northern Ireland writ large all over again. Right. It's going to be terrorist bombing. It's going to be all kinds of stuff for years to come.
Hard to say what he's after. I think it's like a game of chess. I mean, he could eventually withdraw out of Kiev and that whole western part of Ukraine and just say, okay, I'll just keep these two little territories over on the east, which I think is what he was after to begin with. And I think attacking the full Ukraine across the board could just be a way to pressure them to sue for peace. And then he keeps those two little territories in the east, they keep the rest. and he'll come back later to get more.
Mhm.
Could
Could
be
you throw,
something
well,
like
while we're
that.
talking about this for a minute, Michael, could you please just throw that map up just so that I get an idea of like what do those two territories tactically give him? You
They're
know,
hard for me to pronounce. One of them, it sounds like they keep saying dumbass, but I don't think it's called dumbass.
Donbas.
Dumbus.
Yeah. It's
Every
pronounced
time they say it, it's
Dumas.
like dumbass.
Donbas. This map, Tour?
Yeah, sure. Just to kind of get an eye of where we're talking about with those. So it's those Donetsk,
This here.
yeah, right. Yes, those two. So larger access to the Black Sea. Like I kind of feel like his territorial aspirations are bigger than just that.
And there's a big naval port in Odessa down there, which I think
Yeah.
is still part of Ukraine, but there's a
Right here.
Russian naval base there. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And Crimea is that little part sticking out right to the right of Odessa.
Yeah, right here is Crimea.
Yeah. So that's
Do-
part of Russia as of today.
Like,
got
I guess it's
your-
an interesting thought to talk about, you know, what would his end game be, you know, because he is a tyrant, he is a dictator. So there is a huge narcissistic aspect to his personality to be that kind of person, right?
Mhm.
So is it just like, and the other thing that I don't know if I believe, and as Jack was kind of alluding to, because everything that we're going to hear from both sides is going to be propaganda, you know, they're talking about his mental state and how his people that are around him that, you know, have known and seen him in the press for years have seen a deterioration in that kind of stoic, don't fuck with me facade. And you're starting to see like cracks of the crazy pop through. So,
I gotta
you know, if
say,
it's, go ahead, please.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't mind. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say along that line, when I first heard him make that comment about, oh, we got to go in there, we got to denazify Ukraine.
Mhm.
Like, okay, he's crazy. I mean, that
That's
sounds
crazy. That's a little
First,
crazy.
I thought
Yeah.
he was kind of like copying what Trudeau said when Trudeau was trying to label all the truckers that were protesting as Nazis. Okay, he probably saw, okay, Trudeau got away with that. I can do that too. But then when I watched that Ukraine on Fire documentary, no, there is a huge Nazi contingent in Ukraine over in the West, believe it or not. And you'll see them, if you ever see on TV, and they'll put the flag over the coffin. If you see the black and red flag, that's the far right extremist,
Antifa.
basically Nazi flag for Ukraine. So you'll still see that. There's still a huge contingent of those people there. And the whole history, especially in the last 15 years, there's so much manipulation from all sides. I mean, Putin's manipulating people and putting people into power and out of power, and the U.S. is doing it as well. You think of all these things, and Crimea was captured, captured. It agreed to join Russia in 2014, and that with all that turmoil going on, the most money that was donated to the Clinton Foundation was from the country of Ukraine, which is crazy. I mean, they've got all this upheaval and everything. How are they coming up with millions of dollars to donate to Clinton's fundraising? And then about the same time, that was when what's his name, Hunter Biden was over there collecting money.
Yeah, that's a big question mark right there.
And then there's all these sort of favors are being done. There's back and forth, handshakes, backroom deals, so much craziness. It's really insane. And like the ex-president of, you see Georgia on the map there, way down on the southeast. Yeah, so the ex-president of Georgia
that
got
is
kicked out of
Atlanta,
Georgia.
right?
Yeah, they took him and they put him as the mayor. I think it was the Odessa. They installed him as the mayor or the governor of that region over by Odessa, which is crazy. I mean, so there's just all these crazy things going on. So at first, when I heard Putin say that, I thought, okay, he's nuts. But then, I don't know. You learn more, and then you think, okay, maybe he's not as nuts as I thought he was. but I still don't agree. I'm not
Well,
saying I agree
crazy
with
like a
what
fox,
he's doing.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. That's
Yeah,
the
so
exact thing I was going to say.
is he using his, those examples to justify a larger purpose? And I think ultimately, I mean,
But yeah,
crazy
but
or
it's not out
he's a
of the
smart
blue.
guy.
I mean, there is some
No, yeah.
truth to that.
Of course. I mean, that's what makes it effective propaganda, right?
Well,
So I mean, ultimately, and again, kind of just thinking about, all right, what do you gain out of this? Is it strictly because the writing on the wall of Ukraine joining NATO, which could be enough, right? And look at the size of that border, along the Russian-Ukraine border there. That's huge. And to have, as we were saying, Zeus was saying, I think, attack one, attack all. Well, if
it's
I
like
want to
the
attack
Afghanistan of Central Europe. If you get there, you get everybody. Or maybe you don't, but you can pick and choose who you're going to attack.
Yep.
I mean, they will get to a point, I would think, where they have too many fronts, which, as we know, I believe it was Patton, and fighting a war on two fronts is never going to win you the battle. But that's a lot of real estate, man.
There could also be, it could be simple too. I mean, one, Putin really kind of started his career where he made his bones was in the KGB. And when the Soviet Union started to break up, he got into politics. He was mayor of St. Petersburg, used to be Leningrad, which is where he was born. And then he got into Moscow politics and worked his way up. So, and he has come out very, very clearly and said before numerous times that the breakup of the Soviet Union was a very traumatic event for him. And he's definitely very nationalistic and, has made no secret of his wishes that the Soviet Union, or that Russia controlled, that much area again. So you have that. The other thing is with authoritarians and tyrants and dictators and all this stuff, in order to maintain control within their borders, like if you have power, geopolitically speaking, you have to use it. If you don't use it, it goes away, right?
It atrophies.
It atrophies. So he could be facing pressures from within that we don't even know about. Over the last 10 years, he's been doing military exercises in the Arctic. He's been sending subs into the Atlantic, provocatively. He's been testing and developing the hypersonic weapons. He has, unlike the US, has upgraded his nuclear stockpile, which we really haven't. So this is not overnight. I mean, he has been putting a lot of resources into the military. He's been doing provocative things, having exercises here and there. It could be as simple as you got to use it. I mean, it's like, and I don't know I can't remember whose point this was. I think it was yours, Jack, where maybe he goes into Ukraine and then he retreats and just takes this little bit. It's like if you're telling someone how much something costs and you're like, it's $10,000. And they're like, holy crap. You're like, no, it's just $2,000. And they're like, okay, I'll pay you. It's like, I want to take these 2 areas. It's like, no way, man. Okay, I'll take all this area, but I'll just settle for this.
I'm going to go with my level of knowledge of strategy, and that is risk.
It's not illegitimate. Yeah.
You go and attack, you take one over, you get a few more soldiers. That's more actually what I think it's like, is go in, treat a few people nice, grease some palms, back off a little, come back a few years later with a stronger force. There's a lot going on. And just remind me, I do want to talk about what he's doing to his own people that are protesting, because that I find kind of appalling too.
And amazing. I mean, the news of all the people that are protesting in Russia is pretty amazing. But to Jack's point earlier too, what?
It's going to stop like that. Did you hear what they're doing? Well, I guess we'll just move right into it.
Yeah.
So if you are, or if you are jailed for protesting in Russia right now, you get like blacklisted for ever getting a job for the rest of your life unless Putin's not there. Like, it is the epitome of like discrediting you on a social level. You cannot get a job. If you're on this list, you may not work. And
Sounds like
I find
cancel
that
culture.
but this is what scares me. That's not real far from taking a bunch of people that, albeit stupid, attacked the Capitol and throwing them all in prison. You know, it's not, they're not the same, but they're not that different. You know what I mean?
Well, it's politically motivated justice, right? So I mean, it's the same thing that we witnessed in Canada, right? There's certain protests that are acceptable, and I mean, Trudeau came right out and said, like, you know, that the issue is that they're going against him, right? So you know, you get the pointy edge of the spear if you're going against him. I mean, that's like the definition of tyranny. I mean, when justice is meted out, you know, due to political
all I can say
reasons.
is I'm really happy right now that Sarah Palin can see Russia from her backyard. That makes me feel safe.
But the thing is, and Jack was
She's
saying
keeping an eye on him. She's
Yeah.
got the gun like this and just, yep, it's okay.
one of the things that's been interesting in this is there's so much propaganda flying around. I mean, Jack's point about like if that lady actually said that, I mean, on coming out of Ukraine, the whole thing with the Snake Island, the 13 soldiers that, you know, told the Russian ship to go F themselves, and then they were all like killed. And now they're like, well, I don't think they were all killed. Again, this gets back to.
Well, a good point to that is, who would have told the story if they were all killed?
But my point is, we have these people in the world who put this crown on their head that they are journalists and that they are media, right? So it'd be nice if they had like a source or like two sources before they report stuff, because this stuff is just flying around like crazy, man. And it's like, I get that, you know, Zelensky in Ukraine is trying to stoke the morale of people. And of course, you know, and throughout wars, throughout history, there's always stories of, you know, the last stand and people that fought bravely, and it gets people all riled up and wanting to join the cause. I get that. But when it starts being like Western news agencies and the AP and Reuters, not Reuters, but Reuters, that does this sort of stuff, I don't know, man. It's like if AP is reporting a story that like these 13 guys were, you know, killed by this Russian ship, then I would expect some sourcing or some. What I'm saying is, we're taught. It's hilarious. It's going to be hilarious to watch this episode like 6 months from now, because some of this
what's
stuff
real
is
and what's not.
what's true and what's not, because
Yeah.
we can't even rely on anything, man. It's like
I
it's
hate to
literally.
say it.
Well,
I
also,
hate to say it, but what Mike just said is really valid. And quite honestly, I had kind of an epiphany just then. Is like, who's telling this story about these 13 guys on the island? Is it the Russians trying to make them look good?
No,
Or
probably
did not everybody die? Or is it just something to feed our romanticism? And I'm leaning now because, again, if they were all killed, who's telling the story? So I actually might have to lean towards bullshit. Now, is it in a good way?
They have cell phones. They have cell phones.
They were live streaming.
As soon as they said it, then they could tell their family and friends, hey, we stood up to the Russians, and then the Russians captured them afterwards.
Yeah,
they didn't capture them. They killed them.
Well, yeah,
no,
but
they're alive.
They're alive, Zeus. And I also heard
I heard they got killed.
That's the point.
That was the whole point.
Welcome to the podcast.
No one knows anything.
They're still alive.
Yeah.
I'd like to welcome Zeus to the Friends of Zeus podcast this evening.
I stepped away, so maybe that was it.
Okay, that's right.
So they're the Jacob Blakes of the Ukraine.
Yeah,
We're
he's
gonna start a war over this. Wait, he's alive?
Yeah.
All those martyrs.
Well, is this the first real world conflict? I mean, it is the first real world conflict of this scale, but of any scale that we've had such a proliferation of social media.
Social media, I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a totally different world from dropping pamphlets out of the planes.
I was
you know
just
what I
going to
mean?
say, this is the modern version of dropping pamphlets from the sky.
Yeah, but it's instantaneous. It goes to like, you hope that those pamphlets landed somewhere.
Yeah,
that,
but here you don't hope. It's funneled exactly where you want it.
Exactly. The algorithms put it right in front of the people that want to see it.
It's right to the desk of the New York Times.
What if it becomes, yeah, sure, that's what they said. They said, go, Russia, go fuck, whatever, carrier, go fuck yourself. And then Putin came back and said, oh yeah, we killed all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's very possible, right? Because you're reacting to something that happened, and it's like, oh yeah, well, they decided to uprise against us and we've destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came back and said, no, you didn't. We're still here. So all of a sudden, what's real? What's going on?
Well, I heard this statistic that, and this was like a day or two old, but that there's been like 4,500 Russian military casualties, deaths. That's astonishing. I mean, if that's true, but what I'm saying is there's a lot we're not seeing. Not seeing?
Well,
not
shit,
seeing?
in Afghanistan.
There's a lot.
Oh, no. I did not see that.
No,
there's a lot that we're not seeing.
That we're unable to see.
That we're unable to see. What, Jack? I'm sorry.
No, I said speak for yourself with the Naziing.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's a lot of people, man. Like, I mean, I'm seeing things get blown up.
That's like more than we lost in Afghanistan in a very long period of time.
Speaking of like false stories,
43 million populace. I mean, that's huge. There's a lot of people that are resisting. That's for sure. It's still a big number. I'm more interested in the number of what's real of the soldiers that are defecting and laying down their arms, and is the real quote from the Soviet general. What of that is propaganda, and are there people that are actually standing up in the Russian hierarchy that are saying this is
crazy.
Wrong? Yeah. Those are stories that probably, again, they're based. I'm sure that at least in part they're based in truth, but maybe it's not a general, it's a kernel. And it's like who knows really what as you're saying, 6 months from now, we're going to have a better idea from what's real, and we're going to be being deceived in the moment 6 months from now. So a year from now, we're going to look back at this and say, oh, this was right. But 6 months from now, oh, well, this was wrong.
Toar,
we're not going to really know who you listen to.
I got news for you, Toar. We made a lot of predictions that are really dead on. So
yeah, that's true. Probably. That is true.
Such as, I'd love to, about Putin specifically.
No,
and his
Ukraine,
ambitions, or
we kind of talked about this.
Lab leak theory.
Yeah. The thing that I also wanted to touch on is I'm getting a little tired of the sky is falling, it's the end of the World War III. I think it's ludicrous. Putin didn't spread his money all over the world in different places and different caches simply to blow the whole place up, and it doesn't work the way people think it does. He doesn't walk over and lift the bust that's sitting on the mantle and push a button and then all the missiles go off. He has to walk through 12 people that have children and families and guns to shoot him in the back of the head if he tries to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, that there will be retaliation if he, that's the whole idea of war games, right? It's like, we can't, you're going to mutually assured destruction. You're going to get bombed back if that happens.
The thing is none of them want that. I'm not even talking about mutually assured destruction. I'm saying maybe you got like a Kim Jong-un. He might be crazy enough to do it, but I don't think so, because he's got things pretty nice for himself.
Yeah.
As it is. That's the thing. Nobody acquires a bunch of shit just to blow that shit up. Nobody.
Yeah.
And nobody gets to that level. Let's be frank. Putin is an asshole. He's a complete bag of dicks, as I said before. But he's not crazy.
Yeah.
He's villainous, yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to blow up all his shit. He wants to get more shit.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
What?
Yeah, but Zeus, you had actually said that you think he's actually looking to go through Ukraine.
That doesn't mean he wants to blow up the world.
No, I know that, but we know what's on the other side of Ukraine, and that's us.
Well, no, on the other side of Ukraine is Poland, and they're even more of an Afghanistan of Europe. Their soldiers are badass.
But you get my point.
Well, yeah. But let's look at it as a big game of Risk.
Yeah, I do.
What we're saying, what we would be saying if there was going to be a World War III is the equivalent of he takes over Ukraine and somebody wipes the whole board away.
But and Zeus, a week ago, I would have probably agreed with you more. I'm not saying I don't totally disagree, but a week ago, everybody was saying, he's just going to go into the eastern region.
Right.
No one was expecting on the first day he was going to attack 26 different cities in Ukraine. And actually, are you got to get going, Tom?
Yeah.
Oh, that was so not covert.
Okay.
Mike.
What?
Putin's got a gun to my head over here.
Okay. Well, I didn't want you to just disappear. We'll see you next week. Okay.
Tom, it's nice to virtually meet you.
Wait. Do it Jeff style.
Yeah, just go.
That was perfect.
Love it.
But the thing, I guess what I'm saying is no one expects the Spanish Inquisition, right? At the end, it's very sudden. I mean, when things happen, it's not, it's surprising, right? So, I mean, again, everyone's like, oh, he's just gonna, he's probably not even gonna invade Ukraine. And then in the first night, he sent, missiles and bombs to 26 cities throughout the entire country. I mean, pundits, nobody was expecting that.
But I think that leads back to what you were saying about going in, grabbing a chunk, holding that chunk, and then moving out later. Again, the Spanish Inquisition and global thermonuclear war are two completely different animals. I don't think people acquire things just to destroy them all. Even in an insane mind, it doesn't make sense.
But everything is.
And I know that because I'm a what?
Psych nurse. But everyone thinks, and not everyone. There's a lot of people that think that if anyone in the world shoots, a nuclear weapon off or whatever, that immediately it's going to be like the Whopper is going to unleash everything, and like the whole world blows up. That's not how it would happen, right? So it all depends on what the target is. So if Putin leveled Kiev, I mean, he's got the thermobaric bombs there, which are almost worse than nuclear. But if he used like a nuclear weapon in Kiev, which is not a NATO partner, is in the intro stages of becoming an EU. So, the West is going to have to be like, ooh, do we retaliate against that? Because if we retaliate, he's definitely going to retaliate against us, right? So there's a lot of that can happen between total world devastation and where we are right now. There's a lot of bad stuff that can happen in between those two things.
There are so many pieces of that puzzle, man. I'm sure it still works with the whole two guys with a key. They both have to turn them at the same time. One has a gun to shoot the other guy if he's not going to turn him.
It's not quite like that.
What?
It's not quite like that. And there's all sorts of different.
But that's kind of beside my point. My point is he's got any of our leaders has 20 people between them and actually lifting the bust on the mantle and pushing that big red button, which is how everybody sees it. Everybody sees it as there's a button that you push. It's right there on the desk. And it's just, what kind of morons would fucking set it up that way? Nobody.
Right.
Nobody. Absolutely nobody.
I don't know.
No, I do know. I can say with great assurity, there's not a fucking chance that there's a single country that has nuclear power or nuclear missiles that has a button in a room that some megalomaniac can just push. That's like James Bond bullshit.
Or, the cleaning person comes in and, You know,
Right,
it's
or
like
the kids.
You can't
How
do
many
stuff
times have
accidentally.
your fucking kids touched shit they weren't supposed to?
Exactly.
Well, I
As
hope
soon
you
as they
guys
see
are
the
right.
thing on the mantle go like this, and there's a
Holly,
button
you
underneath,
stay out of
this
the
is
blow up
great.
the
So-
world room.
Here's the thing. The most likely scenario of having a nuclear detonation is
Is
a
accident.
is a sub-launched missile. So it's not necessarily going to be like a region destroying thing. Again, there's a
Well,
lot.
that's even more. Isn't that even more levels of people that you have to go through then?
Well, once they're
Because
given,
the sub isn't controlled directly by that button. So there's
Well, no.
commander
We
of
got
the sub,
radio,
and
we got
there's-
Correct.
Bluetooth, we got internet. I'm sure
Subs-
it's just it's not
subs
that
are
simple there.
autonomous. If they get an order, they can launch on their own. They don't. There's no remote control.
as we learned from Hunt for Red October. Everything
Yes.
comes back to movies. Yes. of course.
Subs are designed to be
Hey,
autonomous.
Wait a minute. Hey, Toar, you can't leave out Crimson Tide.
Oh, Crimson
Good one.
Tide.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Ben
that's a
Affleck, baby.
Denzel and What?
Wasn't Ben Affleck
Gene
in that one?
Hackman, of course.
Gene Hackman and Denzel.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
That was a good movie.
Oh, I'm thinking of what was the one with Ben Affleck that was under that whole Jack Ryan?
The Sum of All Fears.
Where they
Some
blew
of
up
all
Baltimore.
fears.
It's a good movie too.
And
Oh,
U-571 and Das
Bon
Boot.
Jovi died in that.
Das
Yeah.
Boot.
Das Boot. That was a good
Oh,
one.
Das
fine.
Boot.
A lot of good ones. A lot of good ones.
A lot of good, so run silent, run deep. So
End result, what I was trying to get across is I do not think this world, I don't think is going to blow up by nukes. This world, we got a comet that's coming in like 300 years, they said.
Yeah, Don't Look Up. Good movie.
I loved it.
I watched part of your
podcast.
podcast on that. Yes, that was one of the ones that I watched today. Yes.
That was a fun one.
that was a fun one.
I think, and you know what? I got to pull this guy into it. I really admire Elon Musk for not making me look like a complete asshole for liking him, because he just dropped a bunch of internet like kiosks or something like that, so that they have
satellite internet in
That's
Ukraine.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I was talking to my sister about this the other day, and I'm just gonna tangent
I got a
for
tangent
a
too.
second, because she's
Yeah.
like, he's the devil. I'm like, no, the guy's changing the world. He wants to put us into space. He wants to go to Mars. He wants to do things that, and he's doing the things that everybody else is wanting to do.
Yeah, what
And-
about electric cars?
They're pretty good.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'd take one. Would you drive? I'd totally take a Tesla.
Yeah.
I've been
you were
driving a
saying
hybrid
that
for a
was
while. I
good
get
thing.
36 miles to the gallon. That's fantastic. You know.
How about no carbon emission, free
Yeah.
fuel? All you got to do is drive to where one, and they're just going to keep making more. You're going to be able to have well, I mean, you can plug it in at your house. Anyway, I don't want to tangent too much, but I got to admire that crazy motherfucker, because he just gave internet to people that it was stolen from them by Putin. I guess they knocked out all their
First night.
internet. So for what it's worth,
Open communication back to the West. That's a big deal for that. They're not just seeing propaganda from Putin. Then that's huge for
here's a
galvanizing a
curious
people.
question. Here's a curious question. Elon Musk runs for president.
He
What do you
wouldn't.
think?
He wouldn't. His view. I mean, I don't know. Just
What if
because
he did, though?
being president's a lot different than being, a tech mogul.
I think he would run, if he were to do that, he would run as an independent. I think then you would start to see the real. I mean, I think the world is 25% Republican, or sorry, the United States is 25% Republican, 25% Democrat, and everybody else in the middle.
Have you been
leans
listening to
one
me?
way or the other?
I don't think the country
I
don't think the country
votes
is ready to drop the dollar and move to the Dogecoin. So I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
I don't know that he's all about that.
I think he's
want
about
to say that
making
everything
money
he's
as
done
much
has
as
been
he's a
pretty
philanthropist.
successful.
I think
If he
he's
ran for
into
president-
making cash.
Yeah.
Listen, we also didn't need a real estate mogul as a president either, and
True, yeah.
and not nearly as successful as Elon Musk.
Yeah, no, that's true. Just to take that and kind of steer it back towards where we were.
Oh,
one of the
thank God
things
for
that
you.
I'll help you out. I've watched these podcast thingies before. So I had an interesting question about, do you think that the oligarchs are puppets of Putin or vice versa?
I think it's
Oh
both.
no,
Because-
he's
Well,
definitely the bully.
But ultimately, yeah, no, I agree with that. But at the same time, what Michael was saying, I'm sorry, I might be wrong here, but you don't blow up the stuff that you've acquired. And these oligarchs are the ones. Oh, sorry, Zeus.
Yeah.
These oligarchs are the ones that have
My
actually
name's
done
on the
acquiring.
show.
I am the boss.
Let him
No, I'm
finish.
not. I'm not. I just like to say that.
But no, seriously though, because at some point they're the ones that have the most to lose. Like the ruble is down tremendously, the Russian stock market is tanked. Like the sanctions are affecting the oligarchs personally more than they're necessarily affecting Putin. So they're the ones that can say to a random general here that, hey, you know what, you go in there and bullet to the head, and boy oh boy, you got billions, and we're out from under this craziness.
And again,
They're the ones that have that influence because they're the ones that could make the payments. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Putin is the vessel, right? So the way it works, it's the same as in almost any country. It's not just in authoritarian. It's very similar dynamic here in the United States. So it's the people in the government are the vessel that the power goes through, but the oligarchs or the tech titans or who, in our country, whatever.
what are the oligarchs? Are they the Illuminati? Are they the cabal that we keep hearing about?
It's a disparaging term for people that are in industry and wealthy people and all that stuff.
I know what an oligarch is, but what I'm saying is that who everybody is referring to? Is that our Illuminati, this ever elusive?
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, you got
I think there's real people that have bank accounts that are going. I mean, there's a lot of money involved here. And ultimately, we talk about the domestic politics and we talk about geopolitical ramifications of things. You start screwing with people's pocketbooks, and that's when things hit the fan, right? So,
and that
these people have a lot of money.
Who's going to blow up all their shit? That supports the whole who's going to blow up all their shit.
Yeah. That's the thing. They're the ones that are losing their wealth as these days are progressing and as the sanctions increase, and the world, Switzerland now is taking sides. When Switzerland takes a side, shit's happening, right? So ultimately, they've got to look at what's the end game for them, right? Where is their wealth and influence going to be if Putin is destroyed or we're at world war? I don't think the way the world's going to end is with Putin holding the flag, again, topless on top of everybody. I don't think that's what's going to happen,
Yeah, he's kind of screwed himself, man. I mean, even if he comes out of this with Ukraine and all that stuff.
Screwed?
Well, I guess my point is, it's like getting back to the oligarchs. Everything's an investment, right? It's always about money. It's not about anything else. And Putin will be around as long as he is useful to them. Everything's a calculation. So, they have a lot.
Right.
And they have a lot invested in him already. And again, he is the one that's kind of playing. He probably plays people off of each other. Who's the favorite? Everyone's always guessing. Like, do I have his ear? Do I have his ear? I mean, that's what
he's got compromise on all of them. I would probably say is true, right? So that's how he keeps control.
Yeah.
But at some point, there, again, I totally agree with Zeus. I think that people are going to look and say, you're going to bomb them. That's where I've got 4 buildings there. How much can they? I'm sure that they have interest in Poland. If that's the next step in the tactical advancement, there's their influence and money's influence is all over. And these individuals. There's an interesting thing. I heard a story that in the 90s, the Japanese stock market crashed because one man took his money out. And he wanted to just show that he could do it. And that's why it happened. And this is a story that I've heard. I'm from Indonesia. My father's from Indonesia, I should say. And he's got contacts over there. And that was the story. The gentleman that told me that is somebody that's well-connected. And I have no reason to doubt it. And that's the influence that we're talking about when you talk about the amount of cash that's involved here.
Well, that's kind of like the idea behind the Bitcoin. Bitcoin, there's a name associated with who created it, but that person doesn't exist. It was a what do you call it? When it's not their name, a pseudonym. And yeah, so there's always those stories. I think at the end of it all, we don't know. But here's what I do know. I feel very confident we're not at some world-ending situation. In fact, I don't even think that this is going to be the big thing that fucks with us all.
I don't think it's a world-ending situation. I mean,
yeah, but a lot of people are like talking fucking end of times, revelation.
I mean, that's what we do with everything now.
Yeah,
everything is fear mongering, and that's how you get people scared, and that's how you get people to stand up. And you know,
I mean, look, here's the thing. Just to bring it back to like geopolitics and our local politics. It's like, and I'm just going to throw some questions out. Like, is the U.S. handling this properly? Like, should they be doing?
That's a good question.
Should they be doing something else? Is what are the ramifications of how this is dealt with China and Taiwan, with Iran and Israel? Like, everyone, she is looking at this. You know, he's looking at this, man. He's Taiwan's next. We already talked about that like 2 months ago.
Very possible. Yep.
You know,
I think that there
are a lot of ramifications
is going to cause that to happen unintentionally. I don't think that this was a machination of something from China. I think that this is just going to be a convenient opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are looking at how we're responding to it. And it's not an easy thing. You can't just go in there and say, oh, we're going to go in and, he wants to turn this into a hot war between the United States and Russia.
I was talking to somebody about this earlier tonight, and I don't even think China necessarily like has ill will towards us. I don't think China wants us to suffer too much because we're their cash cow.
Yeah, we're their consumers. They need us.
So that's why, and I think I heard something about China promised Putin something or other, and then they kind of backed out as this was going on. I can't recall what it was. I think China's interesting. I mean, a lot of the people are fine. The government kind of sucks, but I also think the government is just like, they could give a fuck about the world. They're like, you do you, we'll do us, and pay us well for whatever we provide you with.
China's on the rise, man. They are not just they're not
I don't
isolationists.
know if it's nefarious.
It's definitely nefarious.
I think it's just self-serving. Does that make sense?
It depends on what side you're on, man. I mean, if you like self-determination and like freedom, then it's not good if China wants to take over Africa, which they're already trying to do. I mean,
I don't know if takeover is a tough term, right? Because as we've been talking about with all this, how do you occupy? And what they're doing is they're occupying. No, I would agree. That's what I'm saying. I think that what they're doing is they're exerting their influence as producers. And ultimately, the more Chinese goods that infiltrate our country and everybody else's country, that's where their sphere of influence grows them. And they don't need extra land.
See,
they're already getting the cash. And when I say they, we're talking about government. We're not certainly not talking about the people, right?
Well, here's my thing. I've said it before, and you don't take over other societies. Bezmenov has got a few things to say about it, but I honestly think that you take over by assimilating into their society. So the more Chinese Americans you have, the more likely that we're going to be assimilated. And that's not anything, I'm not degrading Chinese people on any level, but what I'm saying is that the more.
I got one too. Are we already assimilated?
Yeah.
The biggest company in the world is Apple, or one of the biggest, and they're reliant on production in China. I mean, it's isn't their sphere of influence already huge? Do they need the historical idea of, I need land, everything needs to be China, and this is the United States of China,
like a legacy, like they want the legacy?
I think that's important to Putin. I don't know if it's important to China, because Putin, I think, sees, and again, as we were looking through the history, I think he was hurt by the breakup of the Soviet Union. I think he aspires to getting what used to be the USSR he wants that back. He sees
He wants
the
to walk through his
contraction.
own neighborhoods.
Yeah, exactly. I think he thought he's seeing the contraction of their influence as opposed to, and they don't have the influence that China has, certainly.
Yeah.
Right. China is, I mean, the goods and certain goods that they provide go everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Jack, hang on for a second. I think what we've come to here is kind of we got a he bailed.
He sent it
I was
to
gonna
us.
say, yeah, I was gonna say that I think we got this is a meaty bone. We got a lot to chew off.
Well, I
of
was going to
this.
suggest when because I knew Jack had to jump off here is
Yeah.
why don't we just like cut it and like let's do this again next week as a part 2 because we didn't
That's
even
what I was
scratch the
thinking.
surface and there's going to
Sure
be
there'll
more
be
that
new
develops. I mean, there's a lot of not just with the Ukraine situation, but it has a lot of tangents that are relevant to other things
Absolutely.
that are going on. So
There's going to be a lot of meat from the State of the Union tonight, I'm sure.
yeah,
The boots on the ground that are everything that's happening in Ukraine right now. There's going to be a lot more that's to talk about. You know, I don't know if you
can
guys
you come
wanna-
back?
I mean,
can you come back next week?
certainly.
Tor?
Pretty sure. I got to check.
Yeah.
But Tor,
this is a
but
good time for me.
can you come back or will you be at Comic-Con? Because it looks like you're working a comic book store.
These are mostly baseball cards.
Those are baseball.
So,
Yeah.
I know, but
I'm
you
a
always find
big
baseball cards
fan.
at a comic book store.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm not a huge comics fan, but I'll watch anything.
That's
in
your
the
own
MCU.
shit?
Oh yeah, this is all my stuff.
Wow.
Nothing is crazy expensive. Nothing is crazy. I have a lot of good stuff, but that's not up where people could put it in their pocket and walk
No,
out
it
of here,
look
'cause
it's
I'm in my
displayed
basement
like-
where my kids hang out mostly with their friends. So you know,
It's
you
displayed
need to
like
get
it's in
beer
a
money
comic
and
book
stealing a
store.
Jackie Robinson. So I love it. I love all that stuff. And I guess if I do come back, I have a great Putin story.
Yeah, man. Let's
Did you meet him in a bar?
let's do a
Pretty
timeout.
close. Pretty
Let's-
close.
Let's
Pretty
do a
close.
timeout. We'll open with Tor's Putin story, and then I'll explain why I have this airplane behind me. And then we'll.
I know
we'll
that
go off.
airplane.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just got
save
blown
it.
up.
You guys only do Tuesdays? Is that definitely your thing?
We may do another one. I believe for now we've been only doing Tuesdays, but we should
Okay.
jump off because this is all inside baseball stuff. I'm gonna stop
yeah.
recording. Hey Jack
Sure.
or Zeus,
Wait,
can you
hold
be
on,
Jack?
Let me see if I can. All right, guys. We've been on for a while now. I think it's about time we wrap this up. Get off my lawn.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks
See
for
you
having
next-
me, guys. I appreciate it.
See you next week.